Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next segment of the show. My name is Steve Barrett. I'm the editorial director, PR Week US and Campaign US. Going to take you through the PR Lions with the president of the jury this year. It's Gail Hyman, who's the CEO of Weber Shandwick. Gail, hi. How are you doing?
Hey, fantastic. It's good to see you, Steve.
It's really good to see you too.
It's been a while.
It has been a while. We've had a weird year, and you signed up for you didn't know you were signing up for a 2-year gig, did you, when you took on this presidency?
No, I didn't know. Listen, there's a lot about the last 18 months that that we didn't expect, and signing up for the 2-year gig was just one of those things.
Yeah. So talk us through the PR Lions in terms of the trends. You've done this before, and you've been a juror as well, so You've got a good perspective on it. What was the work like this year, and what were the particular trends you saw?
Well, let me begin by saying I had an awesome jury, a committed jury, a genius jury. So I want to thank every member of that jury, both the shortlist jury and the jury that awarded the Lions. So you cannot do it without an awesome jury. So I want to thank them for that.
Did you miss being in an airless room in Cannes?
I missed the scent of the food, the coffee, all of those things, and the lanyards. I missed the lanyards. But no, I think there's been a lot of discussion on virtual Cannes versus in-room Cannes, and surely you miss the electricity of the people for sure. But I felt like because of the virtualness, everybody got their voice in, everybody was heard, and the work really got its due. We spent a lot of time and attention watching the work again and again and again, and I think that really is important. So virtual Cannes, I think was great.
Yeah. And give us a couple of pointers from the work that we should be looking out for when we see the winners?
Yeah, I will. And in the jury, and we all talked about sort of what we thought were the overall themes. I think there were a few. I mean, the first thing that I think about is if you look at this period of 18 months, right? The worlds kind of collided. I mean, they were beginning to collide before the pandemic, but you see the world of technology collide with the world of media, with the world of policy, with the world of culture, and the world of health, where we saw the absolute fragility and the inequities in the world. Everybody did, no matter where they were in the world. And the work in this period of time reflected that. The work really showed this collision of the worlds. And when we talk about the Grand Prix, there were 2 of them this year, you'll see that those are born of the collision of worlds. I think the second thing we saw, and I will soundbite it a bit for you because you're who you are. Who doesn't like a soundbite? Who doesn't enjoy a soundbite? Yeah. But I think there were more than 50 shades of subversion in the work. If we go down the short list, and even some of the work that was extraordinary work that didn't make the short list, it was subverting something. All of us, had our way of life subverted in this period of time. But I think the extraordinary ideas were a subversion of something. They were a subversion of a tradition or of an institution, or it felt like everything was a subversion, and that was kind of interesting and kind of great, and I think made the work hyper creative. The third thing I think we saw is, and again, this has been happening for years, everything's a channel. Everything's a channel. I mean, you would expect now marketers are using the gaming world and going into the gaming world and exploring the gaming world. We saw lots of that, and some of it really extraordinary. We saw football shirts, we saw football boots, we saw even Cristo Redentor become a channel, which is a little surprising and a little creative. And the fourth thing, I think, is purpose. So we all talk about Cannes and purpose-driven work is extraordinary, and we see it, and it moves us. I think it's kind of purpose to the second power, because it used to be a little bit more about awareness building and consciousness raising, and that is great. Now we're looking for real enduring change. Is this work that really takes us on a path for enduring change? And I think we saw a lot of that, and that was terrific to see.
And how were people able to be creative given the constraints of lockdown and not being able to do the usual things, not being able to get teams together in the normal ways? How was that reflected in the work?
It's interesting because a lot of conversation, were there differences between 2020 and 2021? Did we see that? I think we saw a little bit, and the jury, we discussed it a little bit. The craft may have been a little bit different in 2020, a little bit responsive to what was going on. Perhaps some of the activations were less robust and maybe a little bit less bombastic, a little more intimacy. Again, it yielded beautiful work. 2021 was a little bit, we saw a little bit back to the kind of craft that we were accustomed to seeing. But overall, was creative work made in this very difficult period by creative people who were experiencing the same loss, the same anxieties, the same issues as all of us around the world felt. Yes, there was extraordinary creative work, and I think there was a lot of heroism in creating that work.
Now, we talk a lot about earned media now infusing everything, every category it can, and we see PR firms playing in the other categories, and we see advertising and other firms playing in the PR category. What's your view on earned media now, where we are, and what do the Lions say about the state of the PR industry?
Yeah, no, it's interesting because when we set out the jury, and I think all juries do that, sort of set out what are we looking for in the work. And our jury created a manifesto. And the headline of the manifesto was that we are looking for work that truly, truly leverages the power and the primacy of what public relations is. And I think if we go back to that, collision of worlds and what this past 18 months was, and the collision of crises that we all lived through all around the world, public relations was at the heart of that, was at the epicenter, was counseling, was moving, was changing, right? Whether it be business or institutions or government institutions, et cetera. So to get to your question, I think public relations has never been more important, never been more at the center of the discussion. Again, when you look at the winners across the board at Cannes, you see an earned idea at the heart of every single winner, my view. And I believe public relations is the soul of the marketing services industry, though I have a bias, as you know. So I think, and we held ourselves up against, no matter where the idea was born, was it an idea that had the power to truly earn attention and transcend channels? And I think you'll see when you look at the short list ultimately and see the Cannes Lions that we proudly awarded, you'll see that all of those ideas do.
Yeah, looking forward to that. Well, we're going to bring one of the other jury members in now to talk about some of the work. Emily Poon is joining us from Singapore. How are you doing, Emily?
Hi, everyone. Hi, Gail. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Hi, Emily.
So
Hello.
How was the jury experience for you, and how was doing it virtually? How did you mesh together as a team and assess this great work?
Well, first of all, Gail is a fantastic jury president. For me,
Thanks,
two words. Well, that's earning influence, right? So 2 words, magical and momentous. It has been momentous on 2 levels. This year is my first experience as a Cannes juror, and it's also the first ever Cannes Lions and Cannes, right? So, it's a brand new experience for everyone else. For me as well, it's sort of goodbye bars, goodbye resort wear, goodbye, picturesque Riviera views, hello pajamas. I was judging most of the time into the wee hours of the morning. Against fancy virtual backgrounds, Zoom hanging with 8 other jurors, and we were treated to 2 years worth of body of work, right? And this experience has been really, really fulfilling. It's been a real privilege for me to be able to see back-to-back work, and how the work itself pivoted to really sort of how creativity and communications really came together in a very difficult time. So it's really magical. It's momentous, and also I think I have made 8 firm friends for life. Let's not forget that Cannes is also a great time for us to come together, not just to celebrate the great work and the role our industry can play, doing good for our communities and businesses, but just that I've personally and professionally learned so much. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, and we all hope we'll be back on the Croisette next year and be able to take advantage of all that. But you did a great job in terms of doing it virtually. Now, I believe you're going to take us through one of the pieces of work that won one of the Silver Awards. So, over to you, Emily.
A teenager in Japan is suing her school for forcing her to dye her natural brown hair black. Peer pressure is extremely powerful in Japan. The ongoing situation, schools forcing rules on students, and students being unable to talk back.
切るか染めてって言われて、
学校で髪が茶色かったりとか指摘されて黒くしてこいって言われて。
Pantene stood up to change this Japanese custom of stifling individuality. What's wrong with my hair? For students who have trouble speaking up against their schools, we started a project to involve everyone in society to discuss the issue. We presented to society actual questions that students have about hair-related school regulations and created opportunities for everyone to discuss together.
もともと生まれた時から結構茶色くて、もうずっと本当に両親も結構茶色いので、だから今染めるのっていう。
自分は染める必要はないと思います。
Our activism led to even more discussions by everyone. Major news programs featured the project and discussed the topic for an unusual 30-minute duration. Numerous media outlets also featured the topic. As a result, Minister of Education responded.
絶えず積極的に見直す必要があるのではないかと考えます。
Schools across Japan re-examined their regulations. We changed outdated rules on hair and increased the sales of Pantene for the first time in over 5 years.
Great piece of work, Emily. What was it that particularly stood out for you when you were assessing this, and what might have flipped it up to a gold winner?
That's right. So what our jury and I unanimously liked about this campaign is that it was based on a very strong cultural insight in Japan around the conformist rules in school, which often meant that students were required to wear their hair in specific styles and dye their naturally brown hair to black. So there is a real cultural tension that we found very fascinating between the wider conformist nature of the society versus an increasing desire among the younger generations of students in Japan to be accepted for who they are. So the campaign took this insight head on, and Pantene provided students and teachers with a platform for dialogue to help the community open up and talk about the things that really mattered. And this, we believe, was not just the starting point to creating change, but it's really at the heart, a very powerful public relations campaign, encouraging a really typically tight culture in Japan, and the students and teachers to open up and share their viewpoints. This was also a very purposeful piece of work because it's very true to Pantene's mission around encouraging and connecting with their audiences to embrace and celebrate individuals and unique differences. So we believe that this piece of work doesn't just reflect culture, but also drove positive, lasting change. Eventually, I think the results speak for itself. Not just Pantene sales going up in 5 years for the first time in 5 years, we believe, but also to drive that change. Eventually, some Tokyo high schools were banned from instructing students to dye their hair black. And this is just really powerful.
Yeah, it's a great piece of work. So it actually affected change and resulted in increased sales as well. So it's a perfect storm there. Thanks so much, Emily, for joining us. We're going to be looking at the Gold Awards next. But first of all, we're going to take a short commercial break.